it works, and then walk figure out what it was quickly and easily.
So,
And if you ever wanted to do something with that, like imagine if I just took the box that I built, put it together, put a display on the front of it, and said, okay, this box will handle 5 tanks. And you could just buy it off the shelf and not have to do it or program it, right? So that's kind of one of the goals for the future, is to be able to provide something like that to other people who are looking for the same thing that I just built for myself. So while everything, while everything is automated and I'm just sitting in my office twiddling my thumbs because the computers are taking control of everything, I can just build another computer.
Yeah.
Build another computer, right? Or I would just take the actual design, send it to a company that does that, and have them build it for me. Right. So,
yeah. Well, but
I mean, I've had you wouldn't believe the number of people who have seen this and have expressed interest in having one themselves.
well, I was just going to ask you, is like, yeah, I would imagine that a lot of people would be really interested in this. I mean, I know John was like really keen. I got to really get you guys talking at some point. We'll have to talk about that. But he was just fascinated with the idea, and then when I was telling him, how things work on, on our side, on the meat industry side, because I mean, he doesn't really know all that much about that. He just knows the PLCs and that, and and he immediately picked up on it and started going off on all kinds of stuff. But I mean, you've built this thing from the ground up and sort of added bits as you saw. Oh, okay, well, I did this, but what if I did this too, and I could do that, and so I'm assuming you kind of got a system now between the software that you've built and then the equipment that you pulled together for the software to execute.
Yeah, I mean, so you could take the equipment that's in this machine or in this sort of system, and you could buy it off the shelf yourself, right? So you can go out to any automation company, you can buy similar products or the exact same products, and you could buy it and build it yourself. The key piece of this technology is the actual code that runs it all. Right?
Yeah.
It's not just a simple matter of, if A equals B, then C, right?
Right, yeah.
It's a little bit more complicated than that, because there's decision making that's going on based on everything else that's going on. And there's also some logic in there about, knowing what the formula is for something, how to carbonate it to a specific level using a table, right? Getting information. And so basically I had to trick the PLC into thinking that it wasn't doing this. So multiple levels of functions, essentially, and each function returns one piece of information, and then that piece of information gets plugged into the next function, which returns another piece of information based on the first original setting and second new setting, right? Because you can't have a database where you can just say, tell me what the number is if A is 6 and B is 7. You have to trick it. The PLCs aren't that smart.
No, they really aren't.
Right? They're very simple. That's why they call them ladder code. Right? It's step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4, step 5, and if none of those happen, repeat the entire thing again. Right? So, but within those, you can tell it to go off on little side tasks, right? Little functions that go off and do something else, and then depending on the type of PLC you're using, you can even have sub functions within those functions. Right. But anyway, yeah. So it took a while to program the entire thing, and I spent a lot of nights just kind of sitting there plodding away with it, and occasionally getting frustrated on some things. And then I would see something else, or I would see another piece of equipment, a tool or a sensor or something. And I was like, "Oof, that's what I needed." So you order that, and then you wait another 4 or 5 days for it to get there, right?
Yeah.
So, and then you go plug it in, and then you realize that you plugged it in reverse polarity, and you burnt out the PLCs, and I guess I knew it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or it's pumping the tank in the other direction, or something like that. When you were okay? So
well,
now,
yeah, that.
Go ahead. Sorry.
Oh, I was just laughing.
Yeah, because I mean, I remember I hear John's side of a lot of his conversations. We both work at home, and I hear that kind of stuff going, what do you mean it was blowing in the wrong direction? It's like, yeah, well, sometimes these things happen. So you've built this around, did you have to rearrange your tanks and your equipment to accommodate this process that you've created, or did you create the process to the way you already had your equipment set up?
Well, fortunately, I had the tanks already in a configuration that kind of was organized a little logically. So when I put this system together, it was simply a matter of putting. Let me tell you. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 sensors / actuated ball valves / solenoid valves on each tank. Right, temperature, pressure, volume, glycol, temperature. I said temperature, 2 temperatures, and then there's the pressure relief valve. Right, so to connect them up to the computer, all I had to do was basically wire each tank back to the computer. Right, so each tank has basically 1 or 2 wires that go back around the set of tanks, all along sort of a scaffold, essentially, right? And then they all go back to the computer. They're all quick disconnects. Everything's so if I had to disconnect something really fast, it's just simply a matter of twist connect, pull it off, hook a new wire up, connect it, or if a sensor dies, basically disconnect it from the computer and then get a new one, plug it in.
Okay.
So it's very simple. I mean, in retrospect, I would probably rearrange it a little bit differently next time, and I'll probably have to do that once I get to the point where I'm hard piping all the tanks together.
Yeah.
Because it'll make much more sense. It'll make much more sense to have them all, 5 of the conditioning tanks in a row,
right,
and then the fermenters kind of all close to each other. Right? That way you can get your CIP liquids or the product that you're pumping from one tank to another, efficiently from tank to tank without having too much liquid loss in the pipes when you flush it out.
Right. Yeah, I'm just wondering, when you're ready to let people purchase the software you've written, are they going to have to create like a certain scenario equipment wise in order for this to work, or is it something that is adaptable to
go away from it, but you'll never amp or 24-volt signal depending on whether it's an output or an input. Right, and those are just simply quick disconnects. So all you have to do as a person who would purchase something like this would be run the wire from the computer to each tank, and then connect the quick disconnect connectors, and that would be it. So whether a tank is 10 feet away or 500 feet away, it doesn't matter.
Okay.
Well, I guess it would matter if it was 500 feet. You'd have to put a signal booster in the middle, but yeah.
Yeah.
For all intents and purposes, it's just you would just basically plug it into the power, connect each input for CO2 solenoid valve, glycol, ball valve, actuated ball valve, pressure transducer, and then the solenoid valve that controls the input and output of the CO2 from the head space, and then also a pressure transducer. Right? Because the pressure transducer tells the computer what the pressure is in the tank. Right? The ultrasonic transducer tells it how much volume is in the tank. The CO2 solenoid valve opens or closes the CO2 going into the carb stone, and then the actuated ball valves open and close the glycol valves. Right?
Wow.
It's relatively straightforward. So the next step, like I said, connect them all together, have one manifold, one pump, and be able to control the manifold and the pump from the computer, or have the computer do it itself.
Okay.
Yeah.
I know there's people out there taking notes right now.
Well, feel free to email me or whatever. I'm more than happy to talk about it.
Yeah.
I've taken my high tech career and turned it into a hobby at my new work, right? So
gotta love it, right?
Yeah. I mean, the other machine I'm building, it's been sitting on my desk for quite a while. And you ask anybody that's been to my office, and they'll say Mike's got this mess of stuff all over his desk. But it's an automated keg filler.
A what?
Right? So people have automatic keg filler.
Oh, okay.
Right. So it's simple. People have automatic keg washers, or you might have a manual keg washer where you take a keg, you connect it to the machine, you flip it upside down, you hit a button, and the machine does the whole, it does a rinse, purge, wash, CO2, sanitize, it does blah, 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 everything, right? Great. Those are awesome. if you want to add on the functionality of filling the keg, then you're probably going to add on another $20,000 to the cost of that particular machine, right? And they don't fill that fast, and they're not that accurate. So I decided that I was going to build a machine because several times a year we fill, I don't know, 500, 600, 15-gallon kegs at a time for a couple of things that we do. And it's a pain in the ass to stand there with a hose connected to a tank and open the valve and just sit there and wait, right? Or you can get real fancy and you can get a sort of a 6-keg hose filler thingy gizmo where you connect 6 kegs up to the tank at the same time and then open the valve, and it still fills 6 kegs in 5 or 10 or 15 minutes, and it still doesn't fill them really accurately because you don't know kind of what the pressure is in the keg, and you don't really have any way to manage that pressure inside the keg while you're filling it. So keg might foam up a little. So keg 1 might be completely full. Keg 2 might be minus half a gallon. Keg 3 might be minus a quarter gallon, right? But you're like, they're all full. And then you close the valves and off you go.
Right.
Right. So what if you had a machine that actually said, hey, let me pump the liquid from the tank at high pressure into the keg and keep the pressure in the keg the same as the pressure inside the tank. So I have basically a closed loop. And then when you go to fill the product into the keg, measure the volume of liquid that's going into the keg so you can actually do a volumetric fill on the keg. Right? Got a little touchscreen control. You sit there and you go, I want a 5-gallon keg. Okay, fine, great. Cook it up, hit the button, start. Fills the keg up in about 30 seconds. All right? Do the same thing for 7.75s or do the same thing for 15.5-gallon kegs. You can control the computer basically controls the flow rate going into the keg. It monitors the flow volume going into the keg, and it also monitors the pressure inside the keg and adjusts it to compensate for the pressure of the pump on the inlet side and then the pressure of the headspace in the tank that it's coming from. So you've got a closed loop isobaric keg filler that you can fill 1 keg, or you can fill hundreds of kegs in a day instead of multiple days. So it's done. It's all done. I just need to put it in a frame and bolt it to a little trolley or something and start using it.
Sounds like, yeah, and I've heard a lot of people bitch about keg washing. I mean, that's like a huge, right up there with washing the floor for things you don't want to do.
I would rather wash the signal. We have a Premier snacks, like come in, turn it on, put cleaning solution in there, connect up the sanitizer tank to it, connect it into the water mains, connect it to the CO2, connect it to the air, put 2 kegs on, hit the button, 3 minutes later, 2 kegs done, finished, complete. Repeat.
Nice.
Right? Yeah. But now I just want an automated keg filler.
Yeah, there you go.
It's a waste of time. It's a waste of my time to have me standing around or have somebody else standing around for 6 hours in a day, just sitting there filling kegs, sitting on their phone, doing nothing else because you're just sitting there because you can't walk away from kegs while you're filling them manually, otherwise they'll overflow. And if you're like me, you'll get sidetracked in your office on a phone call or doing email or programming some computer stupid thing, and then you'll come back and you'll have 3 kegs worth of product on the ground, and then you got a mop. See?
Yeah, and then that's right back to that floor washing again. Darn it.
Exactly right. Yeah, exactly right. So
everything goes full circle.
I mean, now if I had I'm working on a project with another friend of mine who's opening up a meadery in Addis Ababa.
Oh, okay,
so,
cool.
Right, so it'll be actually the first commercial tej made in Ethiopia.
Nice. Well, there was somebody who tried a while back, and it crashed and burned, sadly, because I was really excited about it. But there hasn't been a lot of that going on, so that's awesome.
Right, and so basically, what he's going to do is duplicate the equipment that I have here. Right, and then he's got his winemaker guy that he's going to work with is basically a graduate of the university, biology guy. So he understands sort of the chemistry, biology, whatever it is, of doing this.
Yeah.
And if he's got a process that he can follow, then it should be relatively simple. And then labor is so darn cheap.
Oh yeah.
Then he'll have 100 people working for him.
Yeah. Well,
if I could have 100 people, I wouldn't need to automate it.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, but you're in a tightish space too for your volume, so you've had to get efficient. I mean, I was astonished at how small a footprint your actual production space was. I was expecting much more stuff, much more spread out, bigger, wider, so on and so forth. And yet you're like, are you ahead or behind Brad this year?
I'm behind Brad.
You're behind Brad.
Brad's way ahead of me.
Oh, okay. All right. Yeah. So you're like the second largest meadery in the country, not including Bargetto's, because we don't count them because they're large California wineries. Yeah. So, but as far as
they make 10,000 cases a year.
Yeah.
Right.
Exactly.
They make 100,000 cases of grape wine.
Yeah. Exactly. They're humongous. So in the craft meadery world, though. You and Brad are at the top of the pile, and so I was just expecting it to be a lot bigger, and I was stunned at how much you were doing in such a small footprint. I mean, it was just I was really amazed.
Yeah. So our building is 5,000 square feet. There's probably 800 square feet of office. There's probably 500 square feet of tap room.
No, it's a little bit more than
that. And then
there's
it might be a bit more. I don't know.
It's maybe about 700 square foot for the tap room, but you're right, it's not real big. Yeah.
Yeah. And then there's sort of a 2,000 square feet behind that. 1,000 of it is just the tanks, right? And then the other 1,000 is some barrel storage, product storage, and the new bottling line, right? Right. And before we had two bottling lines. We had one, what was a 9-head rotary filler for just the still products, and then we had another 6-head, Maheen filler for all of the sort of the carbonated session types of products, and then that was connected to another sort of inline filler. So those things were kind of automated too, right? But they were very specific to the bottle, and they were very specific to the type of product that went into the bottle. So what we decided, because we were always looking at ways to save space in the building, is to basically sell both of those machines and buy one machine that did all of it. So now I freed up about 500 square feet. Right, I sold the 9-head rotary filler to John, right, White Winter.
Oh, that's right? Where he got that from you. Okay, I saw when he put that in.
That's my machine.
Yeah, I was I stopped by his place before I came to see you, and I actually got there on bottling day, so they put me to work.
Yeah, great machine, workhorse. Yeah. It's never broken down on me. It's super reliable. It was custom built for us for a different project. Back in 2001 when we were working on another much larger project, and that machine is actually the result of the 10% deposit that we weren't going to get back because we were going to cancel the whole deal with this one deal. Anyway, but so I had ordered a $1 million bottling line at the time, and I had to put a deposit down on it. And then when that deal fell through, then I couldn't get my deposit back. So I said, well, hell, just build me a machine.
Yeah.
So they built me that machine, and it worked for the time period, for the length of time that we had it.
Well, at least you didn't lose your money.
And it was,
Well,
yeah,
yeah. That's a lot of money.
Right? Yeah. So, yeah, right. So of course, you're in business, and you take advantage of whatever the tax rules are for being in business. So that machine was amortized over whatever the life that it was amortized over, and so it didn't really have much value to us other than just some residual value for, if you're going to buy a new machine, you just give it away or sell it or just scrap it. And I talked to a couple of people, and a couple of them had bottles that wouldn't fit in the machine properly. And so I didn't want to give it to them because I didn't want them to have a machine that wasn't going to work with their particular bottle, not knowing if it would work or not, especially narrower bottles. And then I got a message from John. He said, "Hey, is that machine still around?" I'm like, "Yeah." So I gave him the diameters of the bottles, and he's like, "Oh, perfect." So he came. It took us the better part of a day to get it on the back of the truck.
Oh, geez.
It weighs a lot more than we thought it weighed. we thought it weighed about 5,000 pounds. It turns out it weighs closer to 10.
Oh my!
It's a monstrosity. It's a behemoth. I mean, there's nothing ever going to happen to it, I don't think. Right? And then I sold the Maheen to another meadery that uses a Maheen filler, and they wanted another one, and they wanted the other functionality that was on mine, right? Which was basically some other performance advantages, and they also wanted to have the inline bottle rinser instead of using a little manual gizmo.
Right.
Stainless steel, that's the name of the company, automatic keg washer. Yeah, so about the same speed as the machines I had before, maybe a little bit faster, but it'll do $8 for 10 square feet. So,
yeah.
There's a lovely building around the corner though. It's got a great front garden area. It's all fenced off. It's about
nice.
It's about 5,000 square feet. That would make a wonderful outside sort of beer garden connected to a tap room in the building. The building was just recently remodeled. It's 20,000 square feet. It's got about 90 parking spots, and they only want $60,000 a month for it. Right?
Wow.
So there you go.
Yeah.
Just a bit.
Yeah, that's crazy. So that's pretty cool.
Right?
I mean, you've pulled together some really awesome stuff to make the most of, what you've got set up. That's just slick as shit.
Yeah. Right. So all those tanks, I mean, is probably in 1,000 square feet. Right. And doing 60,000 gallons a year plus or minus. If I wanted to, I could probably triple that volume in that same space. And I think one of the reasons is because virtually all of the production that we do is on demand.
Okay.
Right? So a distributor will call up and say, "Hey, I want 100 cases of this, 50 cases of that, 32 cases of that, 64 cases of that, and 500 cases of that." I'll go, "Okay, I just look at my phone. I got this in this tank, this tank, this tank, this tank, this tank, this tank, this tank," and I tell them, "Yeah, I can have all of that for you next week on Thursday, except for this product, and I'll have that for you in 2 weeks from now." Right? So I don't stockpile bottled product. Period.
Okay.
Right? So you might get, I might make, well, just as an example, I might make 1,000 gallons of sweet mead, and I might bottle half of it and put the other half in barrels or in stainless barrels or drums or totes, and just let it sit there. And then the next guy calls up and says, "Hey, I need 100 cases of sweet mead." "Okay, fine, great. I'll bottle it for you next week." So in the back of the building, there's 1,000 square feet that's walled off from the rest of the building, and that's sort of the dry goods kind of storage. And that's where there's probably 20 pallets of glass bottles of different things that we use. Right, and then there's a couple of storage containers in the backyard. Right, and then empty boxes and containers that aren't built are upstairs over the tap room on that mezzanine.
Oh, is that what's up there?
So
okay.
we've kind of
Okay.
Yeah, so we've kind of taken the space that we have and used it to whatever advantage we have, and because it's very hot in the summer out here,
yeah,
I don't want to have product sitting in a warehouse during the summer. Right, so I'd rather have it in a tank where I know it's at the right temperature. It's stable, of course, and then I'll bottle it for you. And by the time you get it out to your market, it'll still probably be 2 or 3 weeks before you get it onto a shelf. So it's got 2 or 3 weeks of time to do something, right?
Yeah.
And then, of course, there's always these one-off products, like Odin and Loki, and then Malia we try to do every year, and then there's the Mead of Poetry, which we do every. We bottle that every. God, I haven't bottled that for 2 years, but the next Mead of Poetry is getting bottled in January.
Oh, cool.
That'll be the 20-year-old.
I'll have to try to get some of that.
It'll be Yeah, I'll say so.
Oh,
it'll
thank
be a 20-year-old barrel-aged mead, right? So the mead of poetry, the same one we've done all the time.
Yeah, I love that mead.
This will be
That's
20
so
years,
good.
right, for our 25th anniversary.
Oh, yeah.
Right, and if you can, I mean, there's a couple of Polish meaderies that I've talked to who claim that they've got 30-year-old mead, and I'm like, wow, so I can buy a bottle that's 100% 30-year-old mead. I'm like, well, no, it's kind of got some 30-year-old mead in the bottle.
Ah.
Okay.
Blended with
Mine is
30-year-old
100%
mead.
single barrel 20-year-old.
Yeah.
Oh my.
That's
So,
nice.
Yeah. It's basically like a 17-18% of mead have the word cider on their names as well, right?
Quite a few of them do. Yeah, I've been updating
And
the list this week, and yeah, quite a few of them have cider, mead, and wine actually.
yeah, right. Yeah, but I think the cider thing is makers in the United States, and I would be surprised if 60% did that. Is that there's the how much mead is actually being produced? It's an unknown, I think, right? I mean, it's particularly that big, of course, right? Because we just don't know how big it is. But there is a limit to how big it could possibly ever be.
Yeah, peak honey.
Right?
What happens
Unlike
when we hit
other
the wall?
industries that have access to. Right. So other industries have access to raw materials that they can just grow more of. Or I can grow more grapes.